Hey, look who's back. Back and ready to talk about some stuff. You have New York Comic Con that's finally back with in person attendance. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Dune and James Bond is blowing up the international box office. When are they ever going to stop making Resident Evil movies? And what if the series finally wrapped up? So, I'm going to give my full review and favorite episodes. All that. The Talking Talk Podshowcast coming at ya now. What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Renee here, the low-key geek, back with another episode 7 of the Talking Talk Podshowcast. Finally back from my little trip. For those of you who paid attention to my recent episodes, I was away because my niece was getting married. So I took a little trip to Beacon, New York, one of my favorite places to visit. Spent some time there, took some extra days to relax. But boy, let me tell you, when you get to a certain age, recovery time after days of drinking and eating takes a whole lot longer than when it is when you're younger. So I feel like it's several days past and I'm finally getting back into the groove of things. I'm finally getting my energy back. But yeah, it was a rough one. You know, especially when you have, it's wedding, right? So you got family, you got people you haven't seen in a long time, you're meeting new people. So what do you do during those times? You drink and you eat, right? Especially given that my family is Filipino. I am part Filipino. So the one thing that Filipinos know how to do very well is socialize over food. And tons of eating, great wedding, had a huge blast, catching up with family, meeting some new people, like I said. Some who may be watching this episode. So thank you again, as always, for tuning in and checking out the Talking Talk Podshowcast. As a reminder, this is your unofficial weekly pop culture podcast where I talk about the latest in movies, TV, collectibles, whatever, you name it, animation, and I kind of put my own spin on things and kind of have great discussions with you guys. So this episode and future episodes air every week here on the Low-Key Geek YouTube channel and on your podcast platform of choice. So don't forget to check me out, depending on how you like to view or listen to shows like this. So again, I always appreciate all of your support and patronage. It really means a lot to me when I see the comments, when I hear people that I talk to mentioning the show and all that. So very humbled, and let's keep this party going, shall we? So not a lot of news that dropped this week, some tidbits here and there, but definitely wanted to talk about New York Comic Con. As I'm sure all of you are aware, last year we didn't have any conventions really. All the conventions that normally would have happened in a given year were all canceled, rescheduled, pushed back, what have you. And then moving into this year, there was kind of like that question, right? Are we going to have conventions again and all that? Is it going to be a hybrid like we saw last year where it was, virtual? Everything was virtual and all that. But this is, from what I can recall, as far as the big conventions are concerned, and New York Comic Con has nothing that is comparable to San Diego Comic Con. It's totally different. But San Diego Comic Con decided to push back, and they had a small virtual thing. DC has their DC fandom that is going to be happening in a couple of weeks. And then some other studios and what have you had their own online events and all that. But New York Comic Con, I believe it's safe to say, was the first official major comic book convention that allowed in-person attendance, and they really went all out in making sure that everyone was going to be safe. The Javits Center gone through tons of renovations. The Javits Center here in New York, that's where we have New York Comic Con. So they have like a new wing and all that. A lot of strict requirements were necessary to attend New York Comic Con and what have you. And still, given the current state that we're in, there's still a lot of people who are still hesitant. But from what I've seen picture-wise and all that, a lot of people did attend. And but it was the first time that the show wasn't sold out. I believe the only day that is fully sold out, and it again depends on when you're listening to this or when you're watching, is Sunday. And Sunday has always been known to sell out quick, because Sunday was always pre-designated as a family day. That's when families would show up. You have a bunch of kids running around. You have more kid-friendly programming and panels and all that. So usually Sundays are the days that, sell out really quick. And Sundays are also the shorter day of the 3 or 4 day stint. I believe they did 4 days again this year. So, it was just nice to see people enjoying normal things, so to speak. I mean, I didn't attend this year. I'm still being a little bit careful when it comes to that stuff. The con flu is a real thing. I don't know how many of you guys have attended conventions or have experienced these kinds of things, but every time I attend some sort of a convention, whether it be New York Comic Con, Star Wars Celebration, I do feel a little off afterwards, because, you're walking around thralls of people, usually shoulder to shoulder, depending on where within the convention you're in, and, germs spread and you get sick, right? So, wanted to save myself from all that, because I've been very good so far during this whole time. Hopefully things are going to be so much more better next year so that I can attend once again. But from what I've seen picture wise, the cosplayers were out in full force. The weirdest thing to see is the autograph signings. Because again, current situations, everyone was wearing masks, and you have glass dividers between you and said celebrity, right? I saw pictures of Journey Smollett, who was there, signing autographs. John Cena, the cast from The Boys, and all that. And it was just very odd to see, like, there's this divider there. I wonder if Lou Ferrigno is there as well, because he never misses any of these things. And he loves to remind people that in order to take your picture, you have to pay a certain amount for it. But the biggest things that I heard that came out of New York Comic Con, and again, New York Comic Con was never a convention that was the place for groundbreaking news or revelations, right? I believe Funimation released a new teaser trailer around that time or this time for the new Dragon Ball movie that they are working on. So that was one thing that dropped, and if you're interested, you could find it easily online, and it continues the story of the Dragon Ball crew there, and it looks pretty cool. I'm still getting used to the CG animation, which is something that they're doing more and more of. So it's kind of like a mix of like old school looking animation, but you could tell it's all computer generated and all CG done up and all that. But it looks pretty interesting. But as far as news is concerned, not a whole lot of stuff dropped. Now, that doesn't mean that there were some things that happened that was pretty phenomenal. First thing that I heard was that they were going to have a special panel for Dune where you get to screen Dune as an attendee for free. So Dune here in the States does not come out until the 22nd. So people who were able to secure a seat in that panel was able to get treated to watch Dune, which I thought was pretty cool. And I said to myself, man, I wish I was able to go to that, because that would have been really awesome. And then yesterday, I'm recording this on a Saturday. Friday, I'm checking out the Twitter feeds and Facebook and all that. And I was well aware that Ghostbusters Afterlife was going to have a panel at the show. And I should have known better, because as I've mentioned previously on another episode, when they presented a presentation at CinemaCon. Now, CinemaCon, again, for those of you who don't know, it is the yearly industry convention for movie theater owners. And that's usually the place where studios have a showcase to present all the movies that they're working on for the next year or so. So when, Jason and Ivan Reitman were there, they did a presentation for Ghostbusters Afterlife, and they treated the crowd to the full movie. They were like, whatever you do, we really want to keep the experience pure for everybody, make sure not to spoil the movie, and you'll know why. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghostbusters Afterlife. And everyone lost their shit, right? I would have too. I was like, when I read about it, I was like, get out of here. Like, that is just insane, and lucky for those people in attendance. So I should have known that they were going to have something again up their sleeves for New York Comic Con. They had the panel included Jason and Ivan Reitman. You had the kid cast. So you had Finn Wolfhard and all the other kids who are featured in this movie, talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife and all that, as you would expect in any panel. And then I read they did it again. And someone, I believe an outlet, Collider, they had a video where they videotaped Jason Reitman talking to the crowd. Same spiel. We want everyone to enjoy this movie purely, with no spoilers. So whatever you do, please do not spoil the movie for anybody, and you'll see why in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghostbusters Afterlife. And I was just like, you gotta be kidding me again. Lucky for those attendees. I'm so happy for everyone who was able to attend that and get treated to a surprise screening of Ghostbusters Afterlife, because they didn't make this known. The Dune screening, they made it known well in advance. You want to see an early screening of Dune, you're here at New York Comic Con, you got a badge and all that, come down to whatever, the Manhattan Center, which is literally like 3 blocks away from the Javits. It's a big kind of entertainment hall. You could usually watch concerts and comedy shows there and all that stuff. I've been to that place during Comic-Con when I watched like Mark Hamill talk, and I saw like a Walking Dead presentation there and everything. So it's a sizable space. So that's where they had Dune. I believe they did the same for Ghostbusters Afterlife there. If not, it was in the main hall at the Javits Center, which is a pretty big hall. But yeah, they screened Ghostbusters Afterlife, and today, again, I'm recording this on a Saturday, outlets started releasing some of their early reviews. And again, 95% of what I've read were all positive. Great throwback to the original movies, enough to make it modernized that younger generations are going to appreciate it. Really well done, enjoyable. I've seen a lot of mentions. There was only one that I read that was negative along the lines where it's like the nostalgia factor ruined the movie. We'll see. Again, the movie doesn't come out here in the States until November. So hopefully I will be able to catch it soon. So what they do sometimes before the release, they usually have screener opportunities that I've been lucky to attend recently. That's how I was able to see Suicide Squad early. That's how it's not even out yet, but one of A24's movies, Red Rocket, I was able to screen. It wasn't even fully edited, so the finished product might already be finished. Might not be finished, but will look probably different when it finally gets its official release in a couple of months. So hopefully maybe I could secure some sort of early screening, and if not, I'll do my usual Thursday night viewing, and you can find my review and thought on the channel, just like I did with my Venom review recently. And I just recently watched No Time to Die and Lamb, so stay tuned to the channel for my reviews on that, because obviously 2 very different movies, and two extremely different thoughts about what transpired in those movies. So stay tuned for that. That'll be dropping soon. But yeah, so it's great to see New York Comic Con in full swing there. Again, no big news there, but it was just nice to see the first real official convention that allowed people to attend in person. And it looked like, from what I've seen, the people who were there, they had a blast, and they're continuing to have a blast with one more day to go. So very cool stuff there. So speaking of Dune and No Time to Die are killing it internationally. Dune opened up internationally back around middle of September. So a lot of international markets have had a chance to watch Dune so far in the theaters, and it's killing it. It's really, really doing well. As of last weekend, Dune has already pulled in $91.2 million in the box office. And again, we are in a pandemic. Keep that in mind. So people are going out and showing their support for this movie because either they are curious, they are huge fans of Dune, like the book series, or good word of mouth. I've heard nothing but great things about it so far. I've been lucky enough not to have been spoiled because it's been out for so long internationally right now. So that's great signs that Dune is going to probably do really well once it hits the US here in a couple of weeks. The only caveat is that HBO Max will be showing Dune on the same day here in the States as it's released in theaters. Now, most international markets doesn't have HBO Max as of yet. Last week, HBO Max did a presentation online, and they announced that it's finally going to be hitting the UK at the end of this month. So later on, I'm sure at the end of this month, UK audiences will be able to watch Dune as well. I believe they have the same system going there. I'm not 100% positive on that. But at least here in the US, you can stay home and watch Dune on HBO Max the same day it's released in the theater. So that may skew numbers quite a bit. We've already seen that happen with quite a few releases. You know, one recently is The Many Saints of Newark, which is the Sopranos prequel that a lot of people were curious and waiting for. It only pulled in around roughly $5 million last weekend, but reports from HBO and other outlets today stated that The Many Saints of Newark was one of the HBO Max's top streaming programs of the month and possibly of the year. It even led people to watch The Sopranos all over again, so there's getting a lot of rewatchability for the series there. So we'll see what happens, but one movie that is not going to be available on streaming same day it's coming out in theaters is No Time to Die. Now, No Time to Die already came out internationally at the end of September. So it's already had like a good week under its belt. By the time you're going to be listening to this or watching this, this is going to be its second weekend internationally and first weekend here in the States. But internationally, so far, $121.1 million, which is tremendous. Huge box office numbers. And I'm not going to go through the whole list of international countries that this is already available in, but needless to say, the top country where a lot of box office numbers came in from is obviously the UK. James Bond is an international icon. Their movies are events when it comes out. So I would even dare to say that James Bond is more popular internationally than it is here in the States. But regardless, anytime there's a new Bond movie, it is huge movie-going event for a lot of people in other countries, especially in the UK, because James Bond is from the UK, right? And big news to do and all that stuff like that, because this is Daniel Craig's last Bond. This is the 5th movie in the Daniel Craig Bond series, and it's his last and final goodbye. It's his swan song. It's his, send-off for the Bond character. After all the controversy about him not wanting to do it anymore, or asking for more money or what have you, finally he came back, and what I'll say right now after seeing it, it is a well-deserved watch. It is really entertaining. It felt like the Daniel Craig Bond that we got in Casino Royale. It stayed true to that feel. It still had the same grittiness, a lot of Bondisms. It felt like a Bond movie, and it didn't feel like Daniel Craig was phoning it in, like how I felt like during his performance in Spectre, which was the last one. So it is a very good movie in my opinion. I know there's a lot of controversy right now that a lot of Bond purists are not happy with the movie. They're saying things like it deviated from the spirit of James Bond and what have you, and all that. And I don't want to spoil anything about what happens in the movie, but my review that will going up on the channel will be a full spoiler-ish review. I'm not going to reveal a lot of details, but there are certain points I want to make that may contain some spoilers. So just beware of that. But what I will say is that I can kind of see the argument there. However, if you are a fan of the Craig Bond series, then this will be a movie that you're going to be extremely satisfied with. I feel like a lot of these people who are criticizing the movie are Bond purists. Like, they read the books. They watched all the movies from like Sean Connery, Roger Moore, what have you. So they are comparing it to all of that, right? I'm just looking at a perspective of the Daniel Craig Bond series, which really took it on its own. It did its own spin, while still somewhat maintaining some of the usual Bond tropes and what have you. But it's a different Bond. It's a grittier Bond. It's a greener Bond that we got. It's someone who wasn't as well established. Now, each movie as it continues, he is a little bit more established and all that. But this Bond does things very differently, right? And that's what I really loved about it. So I'm sure a lot of you will have a chance to watch it. If not, you could listen to my thoughts once I have them on the channel. There's a lot of reviews out there now. So it is pretty mixed from what I can tell. But regardless, people are going out in droves and watching this movie. And again, with this current situation that we're in right now, very promising. And with this not being able to be streamed online, I won't be surprised if the domestic box office numbers reflect a pretty big mark for its opening weekend. So, and like I said, it's an event movie, right? When I went to see it, the theater was about 80% full, but I saw it like on a Thursday early, like around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I don't know what it was at night or throughout this whole weekend. So we'll see what happens. Time will tell. Monday, I will have my usual box office minute on the channel, and I will recap what happened over the weekend. So we shall find out. All right, moving on here. So there were a lot of trailers that were released this week. As I mentioned before, the new Dragon Ball movie trailer came out. We had some other trailers about some other movies and TV series and all that. But to my surprise, we were treated with a new trailer for the upcoming live action Resident Evil movie, which is called Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, I believe. And it's coming out in November. It's another attempt to make a live action movie within the Resident Evil world. And it looks like they're taking elements from the first and second Resident Evil games and putting that into this movie. Why? Why are we still on this franchise? Can somebody explain that to me? Okay. When the original Resident Evil movies came out with Milla Jovovich, the first movie was kind of okay, right? It was promising. It was promising what they were trying to do. And, I like her as an action star. I think she's pretty badass. I remember at a New York Comic Con, I was able to attend a panel wherein she was talking about, and I believe this was already the third Resident Evil movie, and she's very passionate about the project. She's been passionate about the movies for a very long time. She works with her husband on a lot of these movies, who the husband, I believe, is the director and all that. But let's recap some of the box office performance here for Resident Evil. And again, I'm trying to understand how these movies are continuing to be made, because with each Resident Evil movie, the farther away they got from the lore. I don't know if I want to say lore per se, but from the video games that we have been made accustomed to and that we are very familiar with as the storyline is concerned, they were going far away from that. Now, from time to time, they'll introduce characters that we are familiar with from the games and all that, but overall, story-wise, doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? But they keep making these movies, right? They even made one that was like a full 3D movie. Remember when 3D movies were huge? Not anymore, but they made a point to make a 3D full Resident Evil movie, which looked pretty interesting. So I'm going to look here at IamOnTheNumbers.com, which is my source for box office revenue numbers and all that. And I'm going to look at all of the Jovovich movies. All right. So first we have the Resident Evil movie. Domestically, it made $40 million. Worldwide, 103. So not so bad, right? Not so bad. And again, this is back in 2002. So these numbers are actually pretty decent for the time and all that. Then we got Resident Evil Apocalypse, and we saw an uptick in domestic box office. So $50.7 million, 125 million worldwide. After that, we got Resident Evil Extinction, which kind of was on par with Apocalypse. So you had 50.6 million. However, worldwide did a lot better, 149.8 million. All right, not so bad. So I can see how there is still this want, or what I always say to people is that if you want to show studios that you like something, best way to do it is watch it in the movie theater. Box office numbers will dictate how people are eagerly anticipating these movies, and it will tell the studios, because of these results, we should probably make more of them, or let's cut our losses now and forget the whole thing, right? So Extinction, they saw an uptick, right? After that, we get, now unfortunately this list is not in main order here, but I believe the next one here is Afterlife. Resident Evil Afterlife, right? Which came out in 2010. Afterlife made big bucks compared to all the previous Resident Evil movies. So you have 60.1 million domestically, 295.8 million worldwide. Holy shit. You gotta be kidding me. Why am I even asking this question then? It's a no-brainer why they keep making these movies. It's all international box office at this point, which has been a current trend we've been seeing in the last decade, especially with places like China and all that. But man, 295.8 million? That's insane. For me, that is insane. All right, so after that, we get Resident Evil Retribution. Retribution actually saw a big dip here domestically. So it only made 42.3 million. However, worldwide, 240.6. Not 295, but still very highly respectable worldwide numbers here. So again, no brainer. Makes sense why they keep making these movies. And I'm sure the budget for these movies are not that big. I mean, I'm going to look at the budget for Retribution right now. Let's see here. Full financials. Summary. Ba, 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 ba. It's not giving it to me. Why not? Oh, here we go. Production budget. 65 million. Duh. If you have a production budget of only 65 million and you're pulling in $240.6 million, hell yeah. This is a money-making machine right now. Who knew? Who knew? So that was 2012, right? And then we get the last of the Jovovich movies, which is Resident Evil: The Final Chapter. Resident Evil: The Final Chapter dropped big time here in the States. It only did $26.8 million. So you could see how there's a huge decline for the movie movie going audience here in the States. We are now tired. We're telling the studios, look, we're done with these movies. Now, I know some people who actually love these movies. It's like a guilty pleasure for them, which is great. We all have those. But you look at these numbers for a movie release, and this is, again, 2016, right? We're done. But wait! I tell you who's not done. And that's international audiences. Why? Worldwide gross, $314.1 million. Wow, dude. I'm speechless. I have nothing to say. But you know what? Good for them. Good for them. Again, money talks. And you're telling these studios that we want these Resident Evil movies and we love them and we want more of them. So that is where we find ourselves now with Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. And we got the first trailer this week. And I'll tell you right now, it looks very cheesy to me personally. It looks like a movie that really belongs on a streaming service. You know, the way I feel is that you have a bunch of people who are cosplaying as Claire and Leon. You know, they made it a point to make sure that their outfits really, really mimic the video games. You have Chris Redfield in this game as well, in this movie, sorry. And it just looks like a bunch of people who really love Resident Evil and they decided to make a independent movie of it. They are also making a huge effort to mimic a lot of scenes that we've seen in the video games itself. The most classic one that most of us remember who played the game is the first time we actually encounter a zombie in Resident Evil 1. We're in a dining hall, you know, we're looking at, we see someone on the floor, you're Chris Redfield at the time, and you're slowly creeping up on them, and then you find out that someone is eating someone on the floor, and the person slowly turns around, and you see the bloody face, and it's a zombie, right? That's like the classic Resident Evil imagery, the first time we've ever seen this in a video game. So it looks like the trailer shows it. They mimic that scene in this movie. And we got the zombie dogs, you know, they're in that mansion, you know, everything looks like how it's supposed to be. We're also in the police headquarters, just like what we've seen in Resident Evil 2. So a lot of the scenery there looks very, very much the same. So yeah, so we're getting what looks like an attempt to really do fan service for the Resident Evil franchise in this new movie that's coming out. And I don't know who is really looking forward to this movie. I don't know if I could confidently say anyone within my circle is really looking forward to this movie, but it really does look like a movie that it was meant for a streaming service. it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because this is, they made it aware in the trailer that this is coming to movie theaters. This is being released in movie theaters. Sony Pictures is all that and all that. I don't know, man. I don't know. You know, when there's always that conversation about video game adaptations when it comes to like movies and TV shows and all that, and it hasn't been great. It hasn't been great. Now they're doing it again with Resident Evil, and I guess they're hoping that they're going to capture that international box office, because again, the international numbers speak very highly on how much they love these movies. Now, you don't have Milla Jovovich here this time. I don't know if that's going to hurt things or not, because she is very well known internationally. You know, she came out a couple years ago with that Monster Hunter movie, you know, which didn't do that hot overall. I'm looking at the numbers right now, and domestically, Monster Hunter only did 15.1 million, and internationally, it only did 29.2. So overall, worldwide box office only 44.4. But it also came out, you know, during a pandemic. It came out in 2020. It's bad timing. So we don't know what will happen. You know, if, you know, again, we are not out of this yet, right? So we don't know what kind of box office numbers we're going to get, what kind of reception we're going to get. No Time to Die is one of those exception to the rules. Again, you know, that could be a sign of how things are going to be going moving forward, which will be great, because that means people are getting more confident in going to movie theaters and all that. Maybe places are doing better jobs at maintaining things and being very secure and safe and doing a lot of protocols or what have you. But with these numbers and these results, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what's going to happen with this Resident Evil movie. But I'm curious. Let me know in the comments, or, you know, on Twitter or what have you. Is this a movie you're curious about? Is this a movie that you want to watch? You know, we're in October, so it's Halloween and it's spooky month, and a lot of people are now starting to watch, you know, scary movies, zombie movies. You know, The Walking Dead is still doing really well on TV. It's their final season right now. It's lasted so long, longer than I could stand, because I gave up on that quite a while ago. But zombies is apparently still hot. It still works. You know, those of you out there who are big horror fans, big zombie fans, is this a movie that you are interested and want to watch? Will you go out to the movie theater and watch this movie? I may do it just out of morbid curiosity. And I know I use that term a lot, morbid curiosity, because I am morbidly curious all the time about a lot of different things. So I am very curious to see what's going to happen with this movie when it comes out. And the cast is not even a well-known cast, you know? Let's see. And there's this one guy who appears in a lot of movies that, you know, he's kind of like a side character, what have you. And he was the only one that I recognized in this movie, and that's Neil McDonough. Neil McDonough, I'm sure you've seen his face in a lot of movies. Some of his credits involve Captain America, Walking Tall, this TV series Yellowstone. He does a lot of TV. You know, he was in Suits and Justified. He was on Arrow for a bit, in the 100 and all that. So he is one of those guys that you will always recognize as one of those side characters, right? But other than that, well, Tom Hopper. Tom Hopper is also in this movie. He plays Albert Wesker. You will know Tom Hopper if you're a fan of Umbrella Academy, because he plays one of the kids in Umbrella Academy. I believe he plays Luther in Umbrella Academy, the big hulking dude. So if you're a fan of Umbrella Academy, you're going to definitely recognize him. And it's like, oh, there's that guy. But other than that, It's a cast of unknowns for the most part, at least for me. For all I know, some of these actors and actresses may be well known for a lot of like maybe YA movies, young adult movies, and maybe TV series that I have never watched. So new to me, right? But yeah, I'm very curious as to who is looking forward to this movie, because again, I was not really 100% aware that they were making another live action Resident Evil movie, and I was a little caught off guard. And I remember when I sat down and decided to watch the trailer, I was just like, oh, that's happening. Okay. Doesn't look that great, but hey, there's an audience for anything. So let's see. But yeah, do let me know in the comments or on social or what have you. Is this something that you are anticipating or curious like I am in checking out? The only other piece of news that I thought I really wanted to cover here is about Kathryn Hahn. So Kathryn Hahn, and I'm very happy for her, because Kathryn Hahn is a very funny and very good actress, and I've known of her for a while in movies and what have you. I still think her part in Step Brothers is to die for. It is one of the funniest characters I have ever seen on the screen, female characters in a comedy movie, and every time she pops up, I just can't stop laughing and all that. And now recently, more people are really starting to get familiar with her because of WandaVision. You know, she appeared on WandaVision as Agnes, who later is revealed that she is Agatha Harkness in the WandaVision series, you know, and she became the big baddie for that series. But a lot of people will say that she was the main standout in that whole series. You know, her comedic timing, her sarcasm, she does play a really good villain. You know, she's got the laugh down, she's got, you know, all that stuff happening. But it was announced this week that she signed a deal with Marvel and Disney, because it does look like that they are going to be creating a spin-off series for Kathryn Hahn, a spin-off of WandaVision on Disney+. We don't know anything yet. Obviously, they're keeping a lot of things under wraps, but the announcement was just made that she struck a deal and that she will be continuing working with Marvel and Disney, as if we weren't expecting that. I mean, all of you guys out there who predicted that it's not the last we've seen of Agatha Harkness, well, congratulations, you're all correct. We are getting an Agatha Harkness series. My idea or my thinking as to what this series could be, we could possibly be going prequel, like maybe get more insights and details on how she became who she was, maybe her travels after, you know, realizing that she's got all these magic powers in her. And, you know, she's been, as we've come to learn in the series, she's been learning, she's been researching, she's been observing and looking for other people like her and all that. Looking, how is this big power that she has harnessed? You know, how does this happen? And is there anyone else out there who has the same issues or has the same abilities and all that? So we could be possibly seeing that journey, which would be kind of interesting. Because I am going to be curious if they decide to go with the further adventures of her after the events of WandaVision. Because if you remember, and again, spoiler alert if you haven't watched the series yet, but at the end of WandaVision, she gets snapped back into her alternate reality type personality because of Wanda. She kind of snapped her back in and kind of trapped her within that town and within her own mindset. And she's pretty much like the neighbor that she was introduced as, and now she's stuck there in that town. So how are they going to continue that moving forward? Are we going to see her interact possibly with Wanda more? You know, because Wanda now knows that she is this witch that has all these abilities, and maybe Wanda's going to go to her as some sort of companion or mentor or what have you, to learn more about the dark magic that she has within her. it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really, really interesting. But it is really nice to see that Kathryn Hahn is getting, her due because of the fabulous work that she's done on WandaVision. So really, really happy to hear that and see that. No time frame as to when this series is going to come out, but it's also refreshing to hear that Marvel and Disney are looking forward to creating more content on Disney Plus, because their shows and series have been doing really well, in my opinion. And it's been filling in a lot of the periods where we don't have any Marvel movies and all. It's been playing really nicely along with all the things that we've been seeing and watching. WandaVision plays very well into Loki, and Captain America and Winter Soldier is going to play really nicely along with the whole MCU. So and it's going to spill into the movies, as we already know. Now we're going to be getting the new Spider-Man movie and then the new Doctor Strange, where Wanda's going to be in it. So everything has been very complimentary. And like I'll talk about in a little bit, the same thing with What If as well. Maybe not so directly What If, but still, What If has been able to accomplish something that is needed to carry the stories and to carry the universe forward within the MCU and Marvel. So yeah, very curious. I mean, if you guys have any thoughts, or do you have maybe a wish list of what you would like to see in a spin-off series of WandaVision, let me know. Let's talk about it. And if there's something you want for me to discuss in a future episode, let me know. I'll be more than happy to do that. So yeah, so before we get into the main topic here, as always, like I mentioned before, the Talking Talk Podshowcast, it is comes to you every week here on YouTube. If you are a visual watcher, if you are on the tubes and you want to watch a video version of this episode and future episodes and past episodes, you can go to the Low-Key Geek channel here on YouTube. All the links and everything can be found in the description. For audio listeners, again, you can hear me and listen to me every week on your podcast platform of choice, like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just look for the Low-Key Geek podcast channel. Again, links will be available in the description. Make sure to follow. Leave a good rating if you like what you're hearing so far. And if you're on YouTube, smash that like button, hit that subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you're new, welcome aboard, and I hope you're having a good time hanging out. Again, all that support is free and at no cost to you for now. I say for now. It's not like I'm going to be changing this to a subscription-only model, but there will be opportunities to show your support monetarily in the future, as I think of what I can do as far as Patreon is concerned. I want to do more programming for you guys, and all this type of support will help me do more stuff within the channel. One of the things I always like to talk about is that podcast is big right now. It's huge. A lot of podcast channels and platforms, because of the popularity of the medium, a lot of advertisers and sponsorships are now being drawn to that medium. So the more you show your appreciation and support by listening, downloading the episodes, the more I have opportunities to collaborate with other podcasters, get more sponsorships and advertisers. And same thing on YouTube. The more people subscribe, the more you like, the more you interact. Interaction is very key. And I love seeing the interactions because I love having conversations with you people in the comments and offline on my social like Twitter. That draws attention, and I could do more with this channel. It'll be great to have guests in the future and what have you. So as always, I appreciate all the support. Anything you can do to spread the word will be greatly appreciated. So yeah, so what I wanted to talk about for this episode is What If. So What If finally came to a close this week. I was able to watch the final 2 episodes, and it's kind of interesting what they did. And just a heads up for all of you people who may not be completely caught up, I will be going into some spoiler territory here, so this is your warning now. If you have not finished watching the series, then I highly recommend that you skip forward. If you want to hear what the collectible of the week is, all the time codes are on the YouTube video here. And if you are listening on audio form, just fast forward and then you can skip this entire review. Because I will also be going into some of my favorite episodes here. So again, final warning, spoiler alert, walk. Okay, you've been warned. So they did something really interesting in the final 2 episodes. It in a way became a 2-parter, right? The final 2 episodes were, what if Ultron won? That was the penultimate episode there. And the episode was basically like, what if Ultron was able to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish and basically wiped out planet Earth, took over, took control, and then that wasn't enough for him. So what he did is that he finally found a way to do it in the multiverse, right? He felt the presence of the Watcher, and with each episode, I feel like the Watcher was getting a little bit more and more involved, or wanted to get more involved, or at least his presence was being made aware of, right? It really came into full fruition here. Ultron, because he was in possession of all the Infinity Gems, was able to feel the presence of the Watcher, was able to actually locate where he was, and was able to find a way to get himself into the multiverse, right? So the final episode was, what if the Watcher broke his oath of not interfering? And what he did is, based on all the episodes that we've seen, went into each of those realities, pulled a hero from there, formed his own little Guardians of the Multiverse, as he called it, to go against Ultron and to put an end to Ultron. So it included, Captain Carter, Star-Lord T'Challa, the evil Doctor Strange, the dark Doctor Strange, which I think was one of my favorite characters of the whole series, Thor, Gamora. Now, the interesting thing about Gamora, you can kind of tell that there must have been an episode that was Gamora-centric that was not included in season 1. And she was hanging out with Tony Stark. Rumors that I've read online, it was that there was a Tony Stark episode that was cut from season 1 because of time constraints and COVID. And they pushed it into season 2. So this is very possible that episode featured Gamora very heavily, because when we were presented with Gamora and Tony Stark, it looked like there was a well-established storyline that was happening there that we were not made aware of, and Uatu just came and just like, all right, Gamora, you've been chosen. By the way, I loved how he was doing that. Every reality he went to, and when he picked his hero, he would appear and then be like, you have been chosen. You have been chosen. It kind of made me feel like the old comic book run of Contest of Champions. If you're familiar with that, Contest of Champions was this limited series that they did where they gathered a lot of the superheroes within the Marvel Universe to kind of go against like this big thing, right? So it was like a huge contest, and I forget if the Watcher was involved at all, but it kind of felt like this, like you've been chosen, and this is your contest. This is like your mission, right? And of course, they succeeded and what have you, and yada, yada, yada. So I thought all of that was cool. But I do have a problem with it. My only problem is that they kind of made it a meta thing, where they made these final 2 episodes to kind of create this storyline within this already fleshed out series that was supposed to be all individual storylines. And they kind of made it an overarching thing, as if it was planned, as if it was a phase 1 of a Marvel, of the Marvel universe, right? Just like what we saw in phase 1 in the MCU, we had all these individual movies, and then it culminated into the Avengers, and they kind of did the same thing here, which I think was not necessary. I liked the concept and idea of maintaining that each multiverse had its own individual storyline, its own individuality, its own reality. And then when it came to a close, that's it. Move on. Now, in future seasons, we could elaborate more within that reality and see more of what's going to be happening there, right? Like a lot of us would love to see more of Peggy Carter, right, as Captain America. We want to see more T'Challa with the Ravagers, Killmonger. What's going to happen with him? So there are a lot of storylines or the zombie universe, right? Marvel Zombies. What's going to further happen within that world? The fact that they've kind of introduced them all together and made them very much aware that there are alternate realities and all that, I didn't feel was very necessary, but at the same time, it served a purpose to kind of show us, the audience, that this is how the multiverse would work. Now that we've opened Pandora's box and allowed the multiverse to happen, this is the possibility of a reality if we start meddling and having all this inclusion from other realities coming and joining together, right? Could we possibly see something similar in the live action form? Maybe. And maybe this was a way to kind of prepare us for that, especially the general audience. And I think that was one of the brilliance of this series, was that WandaVision teased a little bit about the multiverse and how there are alternate realities in there and kind of opened up the window just a little bit. Then Loki came around and blew that window wide open, right? Now we have the alternate timelines and all this kind of stuff like that. And the series ended that, oops, I'm already in an alternate reality. From what we've seen in No Way Home, Spider-Man, that's going to happen again. Doctor Strange messes something up, boom, multiverse, right? And pretty sure it's going to continue again, Doctor Strange 2. Multiverse of Madness. Why else will they call it that, right? So the brilliance of this series was that it allowed the general audience who are not very familiar with comic books and how the multiverse works or what have you. In the DC world, you have Flashpoint, where it kind of like bridged a lot of that. I don't even want to go into all the different realities and the universes there, but at least in the Marvel universe, this is the first time that we're seeing this happen, right? So this allowed us the opportunity as an audience to understand what that means and what could really happen and what we could see, and also what the consequences could be. And that's why each episode did their best to show us, all right, in another reality, in another world, this could be like this, or that could do like that, or these different choices could lead to something else, right? And I think that was like the brilliance of this series. Was it always a home run? No. There were some episodes that were like, oh, okay, interesting. Some episodes were like great one-shots. I'm good with watching that, but I don't need to see anything more within that reality. And then there were episodes where like, I gotta see more of this. This was so intriguing, and I really, really need to, or not need to, but I really have that desire to see more of it. And we already know that we are getting a season 2 of What If, and like I've mentioned before in a previous episode, I've always been a huge What If fan as far as the comic book series are concerned. There's tons of storylines that they could tell, and it's a great opportunity to use this platform to introduce new characters too. That's the one thing I was kind of hoping for. I was kind of hoping that they were going to use this platform to tease us with a new character, tease us with a new portion of the MCU. You could have teased us mutants or something like that. That would have been kind of cool. Maybe reintroduce characters that we saw in the Netflix universe, Daredevil, Punisher, what have you, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, right? That would be pretty cool, and that would be a nice way to kind of reintroduce them into the MCU now that we know that the Netflix universe is pretty much done, right? No longer existent. Bring back the Runaways. That was one of my favorite Marvel series on Hulu. I really love the Runaways, and the fact that we're probably never going to see those kids again, that's heartbreaking because I really, really enjoyed that series. Cloak and Dagger too, another good one. So I was really hoping that they were going to use that opportunity to kind of tease that or tease us a little bit. Maybe they're going to do that in future seasons. Maybe we'll see more of that in season 2. So that's one of my few gripes there. But overall, I thought the series was very well done. I've mentioned before that I am a huge fan of the animation style. The art and the animation is probably Marvel's best when it comes to animation. They've done a lot of animation projects in the past. They tried to compete with DC with the direct-to-DVD animated movies, which were mostly misses, in my opinion. Plus, the animation was really rough at times. They could never capture that same feeling and that same epicness that the DC movies were able, the DC animated movies were able to capture. And of course, they had TV series, like Spider-Man and whatever. They had a short-lived Fantastic Four series, which I actually really liked. I actually really appreciated it, but it was very short-lived because no one was watching it. But this was probably one of the best efforts animation-wise that Marvel has put out, and I think it has a lot to do with Disney's influence and Disney's take in it, because a lot of those previous things Disney was not really handling. They weren't a part of Marvel yet. So it's nice to see with Disney overlooking things, Marvel has that opportunity now to do a lot of these things, and the animation was great. It was fantastic. I compared it to that movie Scanner Darkly, where it looked like you were actually seeing these characters, like these actors, the likeness of Robert Downey Jr., the likeness of Steve Rogers, Chris Evans, and so on and so on, Benedict Cumberbatch, it looked like the actors were really present, right? So this was, I thought, a really well done series. And again, I'm not completely satisfied with how it ended. I could have done without the whole inclusion and making it its own meta situation where it turned out to be their own phase 1, so to speak. But for the most part, I really found it enjoyable. So out of the 9 episodes that we got, obviously we all have our favorites and all that. But now I am going to let you guys know, guys and gals, what my top 5 episodes of What If are. And this is my personal top 5 list. I'm sure yours may be very different, and I want to hear what they are. I want to hear what your favorite episodes were, what your favorite moments were, so do let me know. But starting, and this is going backwards, so starting at number 5, I have What If Captain Carter was the first Avengers. Now, this was the first episode that we got of the series, and I thought this was a safe episode to start with because, again, you have to keep in mind about the general audience. Most of the general audience have no idea what the multiverse means or what the possibilities are. And this was a great, safe episode to start with. Plus, it's a fan favorite character. Everyone loves Peggy Carter, and everyone wants to see more of her, me included. And it was a great retelling of Captain America, the first Avenger, in the sense as what if Peggy Carter got the serum instead of Steve Rogers, right? And it was very well done, but the episode did repeat beat to beat, step to step of how that movie was, how Captain America and the first Avenger was, the first Avenger. So beat to beat, it was pretty much almost the same thing, except now we just have Peggy as Captain America, which is not a terrible thing, but I think it was a safe thing. So I really enjoyed that, but it was number 5 on my list. Number 4, What If Thor Were an Only Child? This was an enjoyable episode because I couldn't stop laughing through most of it. Now, if you remember when we were first introduced to Thor in the first Thor movie, directed by Kenneth Branagh, he was a spoiled brat. He really, really was. And I think if it wasn't with his interactions with Jane Foster and his experience on Earth, having his powers taken away briefly and all that, and having him have to fight his way back to understanding what his main purpose is, he would have remained that spoiled brat. And the fact that he was an only child, meaning that there's no competition, there's no opposition, and everything is gonna be promised and made for him. Oh my God. This was just a fun episode all around. And it kind of shows you the possibility of like what he could have done to kind of ruin things for himself and make things very challenging and difficult. And how it showed that he was never really a good leader, if it wasn't for the help that he got and all that, and the focus, right? So for me, and this was more like a personal episode that I just found it was entertaining from beginning to end. It was just when you think about what if, especially when you look at the what if storylines in the comic books, this is a great example of that, because it just takes the storyline and just switches things around and it goes off on its own. And this was a great example of that. And it was just a fun episode for me. Number 3 is what if T'Challa became a Star-Lord? Speaking of perfect what if episodes and scenarios, for me, this was episode 2 in this series, and now you got into the meat and potatoes of what if it means and what is the possibility of what if and multiverse. Because it also shows you that you put a different character with a different background and upbringing in the same role that we've already seen someone else fill in, how it could be very different, right? You had Chris Pratt's Star-Lord in the movies, who was kind of like a spoiled brat, never really happy with life and kind of like an underachiever and all that. And then you saw the kind of character he became, very cocky, very, very emotional or what have you. But then you take T'Challa, who was born and raised to be a king, nobility, tons of nobility, tons of respect and dignity and all that. And you take that, especially as a younger kid, into this role, you see how it changes things. He is respected everywhere he goes. He is a proven leader. Everyone listens to him. He has relationships with me. I mean, he was able to recruit Thanos, and Thanos became a running joke throughout the episode about his idea of genocide, and that was just brilliant. The rest of the episode wasn't as great, because I wasn't really big into the whole fight with the collector and all that stuff like that. But it was more about the character of Star-Lord and how different it was, and how, to be quite honest, I actually prefer it than the Chris Pratt. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Chris Pratt's Star-Lord, but now seeing T'Challa in this possible role, I think it works a lot better, in my opinion, and that's one of the reasons why I really like this episode. Number 2, what if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? Now, this episode went off the rails, and it was just dark, and it was just, man, they took the idea of Killmonger, which we already saw in Black Panther, and they spun it on its head and made it 100 times more menacing. Because you had this guy that was backstabbing everybody. You never really fully knew what his agenda was, but he was able to manipulate his way into a lot of different situations. He kills Tony. He takes over the reins in Wakanda, and it just didn't stop there. He was playing all sides, all for his own personal benefit, for the power, for his version of respect, And we saw more of that in the last 2 episodes too, especially in the final episode. When he had the ability to get the stones for himself and the Ultron armor and all that, he was ready to go ham. You ain't with me, you're against me, pretty much, right? Man, it gave us a fuller glimpse of the potential of what Killmonger could be like, and the ruthlessness that he had, all that anger and desire for power. Like, that is a fantastic villain in the Marvel Universe. That is a character I want to see more of in future What If episodes, because that is menacing. He is menacing. And how he was able, like I said, how he was able to play all those different sides was just phenomenal. Very, very, it was hard to pick between that and the next one as my most favorite episode of the series. But I'll tell you why the next one is my favorite. But this one is really, really way up there. And maybe you ask me 4 months later, 6 months from now, I may change my mind the more I have a chance to think about it. But for right now, that's number 2. And again, the great thing about the series too is that you don't have to follow it from the first episode through to really understand. If you haven't watched What If yet, and you just want to watch like an episode or two, put What If Killmonger rescued Tony Stark as one of the episodes for you to watch, and then you'll get a sense of what If is about and what a multiverse, alternate reality type of scenario would really look like, because this is one of the epitomes of that. So now we're at number 1, and my number 1 favorite episode of What If Season 1 is What If Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands. Talk about emotional feels. Talk about heartache. Talk about dread and sorrow. This was probably the most emotional episode for myself throughout the whole series. And this really showed a side of Doctor Strange that we know is there, but we see it even more realized now. Doctor Strange was always this arrogant person, always wanted what he wanted, never really wanted to listen to anybody, never really had a lot of love in his life except for one person, and his ability to, right? He was a proud surgeon, and he was like full on with that. So in the movie, we get to see like, okay, he lost his hand, so now he lost his purpose in life, and he had to relearn another one and relearn that there are bigger things in store for him, and he has to understand that and take it on. Now, what if you took away the only person that he loved, and that is Christine Palmer, played by Elizabeth Banks in the movie and voiced in the series as well, and losing her and seeing the grief that he has. He still continued on with his journey as he normally would have in, the movie that we saw. But once he found out he had the ability to change time, manipulate time, the first thing that came to his mind is like, well, what if I could prevent her from dying? I want her back. And I'm going to try with every breath to do that. And you go through his journey of constantly, time and time again, trying to save her life, playing out all different scenarios, and each time it just doesn't work. She ends up dying each time. His heart gets broken 10 times, 20 times, reliving those moments to find out that this one scenario is what they call an absolute, meaning this is a time in space, in the universe, in his life that has to happen in order for him to become the person that he is. But he's not buying it. He doesn't care. He's going to still try. And he goes through the depths of knowledge, of mysticism, goes through all the books, and he finds out he needs more power to potentially bring someone back from the dead. And in order to do that, he has to kind of absorb all of these entities from all of these universes. And you see him going through all that, absorbing all these main powerful creatures to build himself up turning him into this freakish monster, which we call now like the Dark Doctor Strange, right? He's deformed. He has like all of these like, entities within himself. But he finally has the power, right? He finally has the power, and he's going to bring her back. And he does. But at what cost, right? It turns out he doesn't really have the power. And going through all of that, he ends up destroying his own universe. For that one chance to just be with the one he loves. And it didn't work. She eventually faded away. And he is now stuck in his own bubble of nothingness, because the universe that he lives in is completely gone and vanished because he destroyed it just for the ability to get her back. Woo! That's some powerful stuff, man. It was really heartbreaking, and a fantastic episode. And my favorite episode of What If. So there you have it. That's my top 5 episodes of What If. Again, I am very curious to hear what your thoughts are, what your list look like. Even what is your top 3 or top 2? Let me know what your favorite episodes are, what you thought of the series as a whole. What do you want to see in a future season of What If? Who do you believe we're going to see more of again? Do let me know in the comments, and we can have an awesome discussion. And again, if you want me to talk about whatever we talk about in a future episode, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to do so. So before we wrap this episode up this week, guys and gals, as always, every week, I didn't do one last episode because I was traveling, but every week I like to go over what the collectible of the week, and that is a featured collectible that you, me, anybody can purchase if you desire. But I like to spotlight a collectible that I find extremely interesting within the pop culture universe. And this week, I am talking about this new action figure that's coming out that is part of the Star Wars Black series. Now, if you're familiar with Star Wars Black, that is like the ultimate line of action figures in the Star Wars universe. It is done by Hasbro, and it's the more higher end version of their action figure line. They've been coming out with a lot of great action figure releases for Star Wars. They did one recently, which was like a more retro throwback. And these are usually bigger figures too. I believe they're like close to 8 inches and what have you. Really well done. So they put up a new pre-order that for a figure that's coming out in December. And I wanted to feature this because I thought it was very funny and very comical. And I'm sure a lot of people out there would have a lot of fun with this figure. And that is George Lucas. We are getting a Star Wars Black series, George Lucas in Stormtrooper disguise. And if you ever wanted to own your very own George Lucas to play around with, put him in different situations, or to have cozy along with you next to you in bed, now you can do so. And we are getting George Lucas in this older likeness, but I find this to be extremely hilarious, and we get to see him dressed up as a stormtrooper a la Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. He comes with his own blaster that he is fully posable in many different ways, and he comes with his own 50th anniversary Lucasfilm backer card, which is like a throwback to the Kenner line, which they've been doing a lot of, like I mentioned before. But I'm pretty sure this was done because it is the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm. So why not pay tribute to the person who made it all possible, and that is George Lucas. And I think this is an exquisite figure. It is available for pre-order, like I said, for $27.99. These figures do tend to run on a higher end. It's not like your usual $10 action figures or what have you. But you are paying for quality, and usually the quality is top notch here. So if you are interested, the link will be available in the description that you can go ahead and pre-order. I am including a link for this store called Big Bad Toy Store, which is a online retailer that I frequent often. They're very reliable and very great with their shipping. Plus, they usually have flat shipping rates of only $4, so you could buy multiple things and have it shipped for only one flat rate of $4. They also do this thing where they call pile of loot. So let's say, for example, you have a bunch of pre-orders you wanted to put in, but you don't want them to ship it out to you like sporadically. They will save it all for you in this big pile of loot, as they call. And then once the time comes for them to ship it out, all of a sudden they'll just ship out one entire box filled with all of your stuff in one shot. It doesn't have to be pre-orders. It could be stuff that is available now, but maybe you want to save it for a future pre-order release to all be shipped together. Great for presents if you know someone's birthday is coming on down the line, or Christmas, and you just want to have it shipped out all in one shot. You can do so with them through their pile of loot service. So really great retailer, very helpful, great customer service, and you could pre-order your George Lucas in Stormtrooper disguise there. So check it out, guys. I think it is fantastic. Let me know what you think. If you have a suggestion for future collectibles of the week, let me know. Send me a link, post a link in the comments or on social, and if I do catch it in time, I may feature it in a future episode. So do let me know. All right, guys and gals, that is the week. That is the show, and I am out of here. So thank you again for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. Again, don't forget, if you're on YouTube, smash that like, hit that subscribe button if you are new. If you're listening on audio form, continue to listen to further episodes, or make sure you follow through your podcast platform of choice. And I look forward to seeing you and talking to you in a future episode. So every week, make sure you do something for yourself. Take some time out to kind of, play a favorite game of yours, watch a favorite movie, watch a series that you really enjoy. Give yourself that mental break, because we all need it every week after a tough week of work or what have you. And as always, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and I will catch you next week. Peace.